Hello, everyone. Joining me today, it's Natalie here. So I'm back being live this week, and we're talking about unlocking resilience, how to equip our children with the keys to conquer stress and emotional triggers. So we all experience stress even as adults, and our children also experience stress as well as these emotional triggers that I've been talking about. Not only we as adults, as parents, we experience emotional triggers at times, but our children also do, and how to help them in those moments. So I'm just going to give a few more minutes to see if other people are joining us today. I know many of you will watch this on replay, which is totally fine. And if you are watching on replay, you can also put your comments here in the thread. And I'm just checking that I am live. So I think you can see me and you can hear me. If you don't hear me, please let me know. Otherwise, I will introduce myself. So if you're new to my community in the Facebook group, welcome. It means a lot for me that you've joined a community and that you are here so we can learn together and we can share what is working for us as parents and what is not working as well as parents, and what is it that we need to learn more of and do less of. So I'm a mom of 3 boys myself, and I've been on this journey of really understanding what is going on within my own mind, within my own body, my energy, when I get upset with my kids, when they're doing or not doing things that I would like them to do or don't like them to do, what brings up those strong emotions and what makes us react. And so I've been on this journey learning about myself and to be like all of you, to be a better mom to my children. And on this journey, I've learned a lot. And today I can say that most of the time, about 80% of the time, I can manage my triggers and how I'm responding. And if I did respond in a way that wasn't acceptable, at least I know how to repair the relationship, how to repair the connection with my children, which is essential. And I've been on this journey to share this with you and with other parents, working with other parents, because I know we all want the same thing. We want to help our children grow and be themselves, do the things that they love, and be able to communicate well. And on this parenting journey, that's what we're wanting to support them. But if we are showing up, getting upset at them at times and not being able to keep that connection, it doesn't help them to feel supported and to be themselves. So this is what brings me today talking about stress and emotional triggers. And know that stresses can be different than emotional triggers. Not to say that they can't be intertwined. So if our children are experiencing lots of stress and they're not getting help to manage that stress, it can become an emotional trigger eventually. So I'm going to first delve into explaining what is stress and what is an emotional trigger. And then I will give some examples of that, and then how to deal with stresses and with the emotional triggers. So stress is something that is happening when there is often external pressure and strain. It's something that's happening within a certain period of time. It can be a short period of time, or it can be a little bit longer. And it's often something that's external. It can be an event like exams for our kids. It can be a change of environment, a challenging situation that is happening for the family. And stress can lead to overwhelm, to worry and tension. Because if our children don't know how to manage that, then they are going to feel kind of lost and they're going to worry, and the stress is felt in the body as well. It's the mind and the body having to work extra hard to handle this external thing that's happening. And often our children also may not have language if they're very young, or even understand why that is happening. Okay? And so that's where we would come in as adults. So on the other hand, an emotional trigger is something more specific. It's an event that happens, like our child's friend said something to them or did something that sets off strong feelings in a child. It's like that button that's being pushed. And when it's pushed, it makes them have this strong emotional reaction. Just like us as parents, what is it that our child usually does that pushes our button? And then we are reacting with a lot of emotions. So an example of an emotional trigger for a child can be a fear of anything, a fear of spiders, of dogs. So seeing a spider, seeing a dog may bring up that emotional trigger. And then it makes them feel anxious, scared, even if there's not real danger there. So the main difference then between a stress and an emotional trigger is that stress is the general feeling of pressure and strain for a period of time, usually. And once that external pressure is gone, then the stress is gone, right? And emotional trigger is related to something very specific that sparks intense emotions in a child. And by the way, if you're coming live, say hello to me and let me know where you're calling from. That's always great to know and have some interaction, and you can put your comments in the feed as well. So stress is about dealing with overall challenges in life, while an emotional trigger is about this very particular event, object, or situations that's bringing out very strong emotions. So here are some very common examples of stresses for children. It can be a change that is happening at school, a change in a routine or starting a new routine, making new friends. Another thing is academic pressure that may be experienced by our children through elementary school, or there's certain expectations, tests, homework that it's new to them, that they don't know how to tackle. So that can be very stressful for children. Family changes as well. So events including births in the family. We all know that when there's a sibling coming, usually we see some form of behaviors and reactions from the older kids. And so that's a change. So that's a stress for our children. It's an adjustment that is happening. Parents separating, divorcing is a stress for all children. Moving to a new home, moving to a new country, experiencing illness or loss in the family. Peer relationship, how their relationship with their friends are going, if there are any conflicts, if there's any bullying that may be happening, or exclusion, or even difficulty making friends, that can be very stressful for a child. Yeah. Expectations from parents. Also, if our child is not being able to meet our expectations, then that becomes a stress for a child, because they will try to strive to meet the expectations, but if they can't meet those expectations, then there may be a feeling of inadequacy that comes up and anxiety. And if that is not managed, you can see how that can become an emotional trigger eventually down the road as well. time pressures. If our children feels that their schedules are too loaded, there's no time for rest, there's no time for just informal play, then that can be very overwhelming. So having that balance is key for our children with their extracurricular activities as well as their schooling. Media and technology, we know for us, that is a stressor in our lives because often we are not even able to manage that. And you can imagine for children how it is difficult for them to manage screen time. So that's where we need to step in as parents to help them manage their screen time, television, video games, internet, even content that they are watching online. So all of that can be very stressful. Even if it doesn't seem like it, know that that is a major stressor for children. Transitions and changes, we talk about it like new school, new home, new grade, new teacher, and so on. All of that, knowing that those can be stresses for our children. So as they go through this period of change and adjustment, know if we're seeing behaviors that we haven't seen before or behaviors getting worse, reactions that those changes and transitions are stressful for our children. And it can be even just, going to the supermarket can be very stressful for children. What are the common emotional triggers on the other side? Separation anxiety can be a big one. So as we are dropping our child to school or daycare the first time, if they're having strong emotions and they're crying a lot, know that it is a trigger for them, perhaps because maybe they've experienced separation anxiety when they were infants, for instance. And so now that they're going to school, there's another separation happening, and that may be taking them back to when they first experienced separation anxiety and how hurtful or sad they were, and that same sadness may come up for them in those moments of separation right now. And I know, for me, an example I'm going to give you is that I wasn't aware of that, but when my first son started school at 4 years old, he was holding on to my leg, wouldn't let me go. A lot of strong emotions, and I was feeling strong emotions as well because I couldn't comprehend what was happening while other children were just saying bye and they were on their way to school. And then I realized now, years later, that when he was an infant and I was a gym instructor, I would go and teach fitness classes, and there was a daycare in the gym. I would leave him in the daycare with other people, and he would cry. He would cry the entire hour that I was teaching, and how that was a stress for him at that time, but I didn't help him manage that stress. And so it became an emotional trigger later on. So anytime when he was small, when there was that separation, there was a lot of anxiety coming up for him. And since he's been homeschooled, it's worked wonders, and he doesn't have that separation anxiety anymore. But know that, those situations can bring up strong emotions, because in a moment of trigger, be it is for us or for our children, what is happening is we're no longer fully present, and it's not just what's happening in this moment. What is happening in this moment is a reminder of what we've experienced in the past that brought up a lot of sadness, anger, hurt, pain for us in these moments of emotional trigger. Another thing is feeling rejected or excluded, left out of a game, or not being invited to a social event can be an emotional trigger for our kids. Again, they're reminded of, past times when they felt that rejection or exclusion, failure or disappointment. If our children are having perceptions that they are failing or they are a disappointment to us as parents, if they're not meeting our expectations, know that if they are reacting and it's evoking very strong emotions such as frustrations for them, sadness, or even anger, that that this trigger is stemming from maybe that perception that they are a failure or a disappointment to us. And so I will give you what to do, how to manage these emotional triggers in a moment. Criticism or negative feedback also can be emotional triggers. Harsh criticism, noticing when we are giving feedback to our children or they are perceiving at criticism, maybe they will not want to listen to us, or they will put up some kind of resistance, and that will tell us that this is a trigger for them, how we are giving them feedback, or how we are maybe giving them feedback, but them perceiving that we're judging them or criticizing them in that moment is very triggering and can bring up lots of anger in our children. Performance or presentation anxiety, that can be another trigger for our children. Being on stage, feeling that nervous feeling, which is a stressor to start with. But if, say, our children over time haven't learned how to manage that stress when they go on stage, when they're presenting, now it can become that emotional trigger later on. We may see that in the preteens and the teens years as well, not being willing to, go on stage and present something when they need to. Conflict or arguments, whatever our children have seen in terms of conflicts in their own environment as a child, what they're experiencing. So every time there's a conflict and an argument, if you see that they're reacting with strong emotions, that is a trigger that's happening. It's like, boom, when I see this, somebody in conflict with me or arguing with me, either I shut down or I become very defensive. So if you see this kind of behaviors, that is telling you that this is an emotional trigger happening. Loss or separation. Again, similar to the stresses, that can be a stress when there's a loss or separation. So really being there for our children and teaching them how to manage the loss and the separation is very key, so it doesn't become an emotional trigger where our child can just shut down or acting out incessantly when they're experiencing that again. So how to help our children manage all of this, right? It's a lot already, and you can feel that just like me explaining this to you, and even for us as adults, it can be a lot, right? So just going to check. I don't see any comments coming in, but if you are watching me, feel free to let me know if this resonates with you. It's always good for me as I'm sharing this information to know that if it's resonating and that you're making sense of what I'm saying or not making sense of it, I would like to get that feedback. So ways to help our child manage stress. Open communication is key, right? Whatever the age of the child, creating that sense of safety for our child through open communication and in a way or another that is non-judgmental to validate the stressful situation. If as parents, we know there's going to be a transition, a new school, we're moving to another town, to another city, to another country, or has been a loss in the family, or a new sibling arriving, that we take the time to have the conversation with our child in a way that they can understand, that we know that this situation is going to be stressful for them. Yeah, sometimes we want to hide that it is going to be stressful, but that doesn't help, because it is going to be stressful. And when they're feeling the stress, if we've told them that it's not going to be stressful, it's going to work out, it's going to be easy, they're going to sit back and think, but that's not true, what she told me, yeah, or what he told me. So we want to be honest, and we want to say, this is going to happen, and you may feel this way, and it's okay, because it is a change. And sometimes not everything goes well when there is a change, because there's a lot of pressure, and validate that for them, right? And allowing them to express themselves, any concerns, any questions that our child has, to open it up and let them share with us. And we can also, what we're also doing is preparing them for the change. If we know there's going to be a change, like in the list that I've listed before to you, there's going to be a transition, that we know that at school it's exam time, for instance. We know that those are external pressures happening, and that if we see our child having a lot of behaviors that are not what we're accustomed to, that we know that perhaps the stress is getting to them, and we need to help them, and we need to open up and provide the support that they need. Another thing is to establish routines and predictability, which I'm sure all of you know that our children loves routines. It's because our mind loves what's familiar, right? Our mind will gravitate to what's familiar and move away from what's unfamiliar. So if there are going to be changes and transitions, and those are stresses happening, that what can be predictable and providing some form of stability, whatever routine that is, that we still do the other things like bedtime, mealtime, bath time, if those can stay consistent, that we still do them amidst the changes that are happening in the external environment of the child. Teaching them relaxation techniques, like breathing techniques. A few weeks ago, I did a whole session on breathing, and you can use some of those breathing techniques with your own children as well. Muscle relaxation, guided imagery, going in nature, whatever is going to help our child manage the stress through those relaxation techniques can really come handy when it's happening. Encourage physical activity, right? Physical activity is key. And if you don't remember anything else I've said today, know that our children needs to move, and they have that energy. And when we are stressed, and when our children are stressed, there's a lot of energy that's in the body. And if it's immobilized, it doesn't get anywhere. We are going to see the tantrums. We are going to see the acting out. We're going to see the behaviors we don't like. Why? Because our child can't contain that amount of energy. It's going to come out in a way or another. So why not help our children if we know there are certain stresses happening in their lives, that we make sure we take them out for a walk. We take them out to go play at the park. And so they can mobilize the energy. That will help them release the stress and promote their own well-being. Another thing is healthy lifestyle habits, making sure that they're eating nutritious food, they're staying hydrated, they're getting enough sleep. That's our role as parent, to do that. A child cannot regulate that, or they will not have the capacity to be disciplined enough with regards to their sleep. We need to encourage the bedtime. We all know that, and prepare them to wind down at bedtime, buying the nutritious food as much as we can for them, and making sure that they're well hydrated, which will help them cope with stress easier as well. Foster creativity and play is key, right? So play is a way, again, for children to relax, to unwind, and also to express, release their emotions. Teaching them problem solving as well. If there's a big project that our child has to do, helping them to split them up in small chunks. And that way they feel confident once they finish one chunk and they see what they've accomplished. That gives them the ability and the resilience to attack the next part and then finishing this whole project. So helping them to problem solve, encourage them to seek help. Like if they don't know how to do something, a school project, to go and speak with the teacher, to their coach, and that will help them have the tools that they need to do what they need to do. Okay. Offer reassurance and support is key, so that reassurance, the validation of what is happening, recognizing that. And so they know that we are seeing what is happening. We understand that they are under some form of stress and that we're there to help them, to support them, to also give them the tools that they need. Also limit our children to stresses like screen time. I've already talked about that. So minimizing the stresses that we can for them, creating a calmer environment, preparing them for what's to come will help them to experience less stress. And also be their role model. And I would say it's the last way I'm going to share with you about handling stresses, but our children learn by watching us. That's the most effective and quickest way to teach our children something. So by modeling it, then our children will learn this quicker and apply it, right? So then it requires that we as parents, we also learn to manage our own stresses, our own emotions. And because how we are handling our stress is exactly how our children will also handle stress. So that takes us to regulating emotions and just again, checking here what's going on. So how to help our children regulate emotions. So when there is an emotional trigger, it's important when the emotions are coming up that we help our child to identify and label the emotions that are arising, validate the emotions that are coming up for them, right? So, and how do we validate? How do we help them is by making eye contact with them, by our tone of voice, and by being there with them in those moments of strong emotions. And know that words doesn't really help when they're experiencing strong emotions, but our presence, our calmness is what they need to feel safe in those moments so they can regulate the emotions. And then you can help them label, identify, name the emotion. And that way we create that safe and calm environment for our children to know that it's okay. It's okay what they're feeling, what's coming up, that it's going to pass, right? That's what they want to know, because when they experience strong emotions, it's sensed in the body. And when they're sensing something in their body, they don't know how long that's going to last. They don't know if that pain is going to go away. And we are there for for them to let them know that it's okay. I see what's going on. You're experiencing something, but I'm there for you. I'm not going to disconnect from you. And then teaching them self-awareness, recognizing what is an emotional trigger for them. Last week, I taught to adults how to identify on a clock, the clock metaphor, where we are at. So identifying what is upsetting to the child, helping the child know, okay, whenever my brother takes my toys, that's very triggering for me. Whenever I hear somebody say these words to me, that's very upsetting to me, right? So they can start to identify what are those emotional triggers. And once they can identify those, and then helping them to say what comes up, what is the emotion? So then you help them to express the emotions that arise within them. And that sense of self-awareness can empower them to better manage those emotional triggers. So if you want to know about that clock metaphor, let me know. I have the video. It wasn't a live. So if you want me to share that with you, feel free to reach out and I will share that. It's not going to help your child, but also for you to identify on the clock at 12 o'clock. Okay, what is it that triggers me at 3 o'clock? What are the emotions that arise? And what do I usually do with these emotions? At 6 o'clock, what are the automatic thoughts that come up? What meaning am I putting to that? And when I put that meaning to what is happening, how do I respond or how do I react? And how do other people then respond to me? So it's very interesting with regards to being self-aware. It's called the habit trigger loop process. When we know where we are in that loop, then we can start to apply the tools to help us better regulate our emotions. Another way of handling emotional triggers, again, breathing and relaxation techniques that I've already shared when there's also stresses. So those same techniques will also help us regulate emotions. Encourage verbal expression. We want to teach our children that it's okay to express what they need to express. At the beginning, then, they express it in a way that's very dysregulated. But as we teach them to label and to name their emotions, then they will be able to do that in a way that's less dysregulated. It will be with more ease and with less tension. However, they will only get there if they learn that it's okay. What there is going on with them, it's okay. And we give them the techniques, the breathing techniques or relaxation techniques, and know that these techniques have to be taught not in a moment of dysregulation, but beforehand. It's a preparation we have to do with our kids. So they then have those tools that in those moments of triggers, they can start to apply. Okay. So emotional expression is key, and to normalize that and to help them express themselves. And then provide alternative outlets of expressions through play, again, through creativity, art, dance, sports, whatever it is that helps to mobilize their energy, helps them to express and release whatever they're feeling in their bodies, the emotions that are arising, also helps to regulate. Teach them problem solving. Again, we've touched upon that. After an emotional trigger, an emotional explosion, when a child is calm, we can sit down with them and reflect on what happened and asking them, how can we address this? Or how can you handle this a little bit differently in the future? And establishing coping strategies that are key as well. to be able to cope, including this deep breathing, counting, seeking comfort, seeking help, a calming activity. And last but not least is to model the healthy emotional regulation. So that's what I'm going to leave you with, is that we as parents, we need to model. Okay, so that's for both how to handle stress and how to handle emotional triggers, is that we need to model it. So if we don't model it, our children will just do what we are doing. And that is not going to help them regulate, right? So if we can't regulate our own emotions, or we can't handle our stress in a more productive way, then that's where the work needs to be done. We need to understand what is going on within ourselves. We need to understand what is going on in our mind, in our thoughts, in our bodies. And once you learn that, that's going to stay with you. And when you learn that, you will model it naturally to your children. And then the children will also learn to apply what they're seeing us doing. And that way they can regulate their own emotions. So this is what I wanted to share with you today. If you have any questions on how to learn to regulate your own emotions and also your stresses, then reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you, and know that this is not just going to help you with your children, but also with other people. And for your children, if they learn that for themselves, imagine when they grow up and they become adults, how they also will be able to handle their stresses and their emotions so much better. That's going to benefit their children, and so on and so forth. So thank you for listening, everyone. And I wish you a wonderful day, evening, or afternoon, and sending you much love and all the best managing your stresses and your triggers, and also helping your children do the same. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.